class is the life. Write it down. Watch it come around. What you know about dreams? What you know about it?
So, how you doing?
Good, man. Long time coming.
Hell yeah,
Long
man.
time coming.
It really is. I was just thinking about all the different monikers I've known you as, from Lamont to Soul Clap,
Yes,
eventually to Archie Green, and now the Coke Dealer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Which you know, you were the one that motivated me to go by Archie Green.
Really?
Yeah. That was because when I moved to New York, when we were living in an apartment in Brooklyn, I was still going by Lamont, but and I never really liked my first name growing up because my dad, my grandfather, they shared Archie. So in my household, I was known as Lamont.
Mm-hmm.
But after you were like, yo, that name is dope,
Mm-hmm.
I started just going by Archie, and I truly embodied, and took pride in what that name means to me, to my family. And to this day, man, that's why I just go by Archie, but also the Coke Dealer these days. Yeah.
No, that's what's up. I mean, it's been such an incredible journey. Obviously, I've known you as a friend, so I've watched you kind of go through all these different stages in your life and evolve to get to this moment where we're sitting here in this penthouse. You're about to drop this incredible album. You have a lot of very significant projects that you're working on, from mental health to connecting with young black men and boys. I know the story, but so everybody else can know the story. Can you tell me a little bit about who you are and where you come from?
Word. So, I was born and raised here in Cleveland by way of a small suburb, Chagrin Falls. Grew up token black kid, kids feeling on my hair and, calling me the N-word and all those different types of things. Eventually I transferred to another more diverse school called Solon. At that time I was experiencing depression, didn't really know it. And on the one hand, I was unaccepted by white kids because, I was kind of like, I was kind of an outcast, being the only black, and then I get to a school with other black kids, and they're like, "You talking white? you go to school every day, you don't cut class, all of that." And I remember when I first moved to Solon, I actually wrote a song about killing myself.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time that I really had, suicidal ideation. It was also my release therapy before I knew what therapy was.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I suppressed that for years. I only kept the song for 3 days. Just listened to it. It was on like an Eminem beat.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, things got better at Solon. And so, eventually I graduated, did my undergrad at Morehouse College. Super proud of that. Loved the experience down there. And then came back home, worked in the banking world, hated it. It was nothing, for me, it just wasn't what I was born to do. I always felt like I was born to do music. And in 2010, I submitted one of my songs to Talib Kweli. He had this open call for unsigned artists, and the project was called Year of the Blacksmith Mixtape. And a buddy of mine was like, "Yo, you should submit." I was like, I don't know. So anyway, I submitted the song. Long story short, the song got selected. I flew up to New York, the Poisson Rouge, which is still there. Walk in, Mick Boogie, now known as Mick, he was spinning, and within 5 minutes he played my song in a New York club. That's the first time I ever heard my song in the club, was in New York. And that's when I knew music was what I was here to do. And then so eventually, I had to figure out a way to get back to New York just to live there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care whether or not I was couch surfing, whatever, because Cuddy did it, Stalley did it, all the greats, whether they were from Cleveland or not. New York was where you needed to be. And so my mom had told me I should hit you up because you had interned for my mom right before you I think you had just started NYU or maybe a year.
Right before I went to NYU, yeah.
Word. And so, like, I hit you up. He was like, yo, we're actually looking for a roommate. And I just was like, all right, let's go. Sight unseen. I hadn't even seen the apartment. And my time in New York, I ended up going to NYU myself for music business. And my time there really helped to mold and shape the entrepreneurial spirit that I carry with me to this day. Just did some amazing things. Graduated, 2 degrees, no job. So I ended up having to move back to Cleveland. Broke up with my fiance. I'd been with her for 5 years. Again, no job, for real. Had to move back with my parents. Had no money. It was a very low point in my life. And shortly thereafter, I ended up getting a DUI. I was out partying, drinking, got pulled over, and ended up getting a DUI. License suspended for a year. Could only drive to home and church and work. I ended up getting a job at the mall. And that's when I was really confronted with my depression, man. And at that point, I experienced my first panic attack. It was like after Thanksgiving dinner that next year. So this is 2014. And it was at that point that a friend of mine that looked like me, fraternity brother actually, said that you should talk to a therapist, man, about what's going on. Did that, and therapy saved and changed my life. And as any artist would, I poured my pain into my art, which is music. Wrote a song, ended up premiering a song on Vice.com. Shout out to Vice. Song went viral, and that was what motivated me and inspired me to become a mental health advocate, and eventually starting my organization, Peeled Them Layers Back, now a 501c3. But the one thing that separates our organization from a lot of the mental health awareness nonprofits is, well, a couple things. First, we focus on black men and boys. And that's specifically because, I myself, the founder of the organization, I identify as a black male. And we're the hardest eggshells to crack. And so for that reason, I wanted to focus specifically on us, because when we turn on the news, we getting gunned down. There's all kinds of negative press as it pertains to black men or black people. And so I wanted to really focus on doing my part to help to lift black men up, to change the perception that we see of ourselves.
Right.
And then the second thing is everything is tied back to hip hop. Everything. So, our approach to mental health awareness and promoting that is unconventional, whether it's performing at Severance Hall for the first time, or open mics called Let That Ish Go, where anybody can get on the mic and speak on what's going on. Not necessarily a poem or a song, just what's going on within.
Right.
Because what we're trying to do is foster community. And the thing about hip hop is, because of the nature of hip hop, it being authentic, raw emotion, and telling the truth, not sugarcoating nothing, people can relate to that. People in our community can relate to that. So, but my music, man, I've been doing this since I was 13 years old, man. Over 20 years.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's incredible to see how, you making music was a part of your life. It's something that we were passionate about when I first met you, but it wasn't like a major centerpiece of what you're doing. And it continues to grow and grow. I think as you've gotten more in touch with yourself and your feelings and your emotions, it seemed to fuel your music. And so now as we look at this new record, The Coke Dealer, what are some of the things that make this record different for you than other records that you've done before? And what's been going on in your life and around you that's inspired and influenced the uniqueness of this new project?
I would say one of the major differences with this record than anything I've ever done before is, a lot of times there's the conversation on whether or not we as artists have a responsibility to cater to a certain audience, because we got kids looking up to us, or parents that are listening to what their kids are listening to, whatever, that we have to say a certain message or speak a certain way. I feel like every artist, they can dictate however they want. We're not getting paid, or we're not here to be role models per se. We're here to tell our truth. But with this project in particular, what it became, and it had a lot of iterations. I mean, I've been working on this since my last project was 5 years ago.
Right.
So it had different names, it had different energies. But when it landed on becoming the coke dealer, that was something, just the phrase, the coke dealer, was something that just kind of popped into my head as pertaining to what I do. I deal coping mechanisms for people to, get through a tough time. Like, people call me in confidence if they're dealing with a panic attack, a depressive episode, and I'm able to kind of tell them in real time what's worked for me. Hopefully it works for you. And so eventually, when I took a step back and looked at the music I was making, I was like, wait a second, like, this could actually be something that we can be intentional about utilizing, instead of, when layers, it was just something me writing about my pain, right? With this, it's, I'm writing about pain and the truth behind that, but I'm also really offering like practical tips that you can utilize for addressing subjects that, if we talk about, if we dive deep into conversations about it, can help people heal.
Right.
And so, over the time, probably within the last 2 years that I was working on this project, it became more than just an album. It became a project that was tied to like a curriculum that can go for young black males, college students, as well as young professionals. I basically wanted a project that intentionally can be played in like a Harvard business class or a Case Western Reserve or a Cleveland State, where you listen to the music, you watch the short film that's tied to it, and you can dissect it and really talk about some of the issues that we as black men face. And so with me, with the other artists that are on the project, like, we kept it real, we kept it 100 with what's going on with us as black men, as black people. But at the same time, I wanted to take it a step further, where each of these songs, we break down and we talk to youth that are really hurting. So you can dance to this shit, you could bump it, you could play in your house, you can bump it in your car. But if you really listen to it, if you got it in your AirPods or your headphones, and you just trying to zone out, or you trying to feel good, it's an album for that too.
That's what's up. Well, I think, what you said kind of tees us up perfectly to dive into the album a little bit more in depth and talk about some of the songs on an individual basis.
And a tux and some slippers to a sold out show. Let's see, maybe Hov. Who else? Maybe Ye. Maybe Nas. Why not? Maybe me.
It is local hip-hop artist Archie Green's brainchild.
4 weeks ago, most of these kids had never even seen a classical instrument, let alone played one. 2 months from now, they will be playing a concert right here at Cleveland's famous Severance Hall.
When you opened up the record with New Levels, that's such a powerful song, and especially because it has a little news clip in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about what that little news clip was and why you felt it was important to incorporate that into the opening track on your album?
Up to this point, I had been trying to prove myself to the city, to get recognition, to to be amongst the greats. That's why I shout out Veda Azim, who was like a very celebrated artist. He's from Columbus, but somebody I look up to, admire, all of that. And I felt like with this song in particular, with New Levels, with everything that's happened, like the shit I'm talking about on that record, like whether it's taking Ryan Coogler to Severance Hall, or meeting Sherrod Brown and having like a handwritten letter at the crib because he's commending the work that we're doing at PDLB, or all these things, I finally was like, y'all are not on my level, yo. This is a new level. I'm not the same dude that y'all knew 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago. Like, and the stuff that the level that I'm on now, there's a lot that comes with that, right? Like, so I'm experiencing new things. I'm around people with a lot more access, money, power. I'm in different circles. And so with the song like New Levels, I wanted to make sure, like, I also showed you the receipts. Like, I'm not just a rapper that's talking about all the stuff that I've done. Now, let me actually insert a news clip that really, that literally speaks on what the fuck happened. No other rapper has ever performed at Severance Hall. I was the first one, period. And that was something that, to be totally honest, I was like, man,
can you break down what is Severance Hall and like sort of what that whole thing was?
Yeah, Severance Hall is home to the world-renowned Cleveland Orchestra. They've been around, at least at their current location, I believe, since 1931. You know, you go to Severance Hall, like, one of their statements is, this is the People's Orchestra. It's for the city of Cleveland. Any kid that grew up in Northeast Ohio at one point between, I say in the last 100 years, had a field trip to Severance Hall. Whether you went to see them perform, you went and did a tour, all of these different things. And for me, what motivated me to want to perform there, or to bring hip hop as well as the youth, the black youth there, was, you know, as an avid goer to the orchestra, supporter, myself, my family, whenever we would go, we were like the only ones, speaking of black folk in the audience, but as far as people that worked there, from the parking garage to the elevator operators, the restaurant, all that, it was all black people. It wasn't just people of color, it was black people working there. So it felt like on some plantation type stuff to me. Right. That's just in my mind what it felt like.
100%.
And so I was like, well, you know, after seeing Ye do it at Abbey Road, after seeing Jay-Z do it at Carnegie Hall, and then finally seeing Nas do it at the Kennedy Center, like blending hip hop and classical music, I just was like, man, Cleveland needs this. We just need to see it. And again, at first, I was like, we can get Cuddy, we could get someone else to do it. But I felt like, you know, God basically told me, like, nah, man, you're the one that needs to open this door. Right. Because it's not just about a performance. It's also about bridging the gap between diversity, equity, and inclusion in the arts space here in Cleveland.
Definitely.
And so we partnered with Lexington Bell Community Center, you know, an urban youth center in the historic Huff neighborhood. Work with these black kids aged 4 to 14, teaching them how to play Old Town Road on classical guitar, donated by the orchestra. Teaching them how to write their own lyrics. And then giving them and their parents and their whole community an opportunity to go to a concert to see themselves on stage. That's what it was about. And so I don't know any other rappers in Cleveland or beyond that have done that. And that's not me trying to stunt or flex, because at the end of the day, it was about giving these kids an extraordinary experience. Right. And then as far as with me performing with an ensemble, showing them what they can do. You know what I mean? But I think as far as getting back to what that song means to me, it's just, I mean, the stuff I did on there, I don't know a lot of people that can relate to that.
Well, I mean, I think, like, when you say new level, you know, I think, like you said, you brought receipts. You showcased what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I think, going back to what we talked about before, the evolutions of Archie, you know, it's clear and evident that you're in a different plane right now. You're in a different space. And that's why I think the second track of the album is interesting too, because, you know, it's OG.
Cause nigga, I'm an OG. Yeah. Nigga touchdown 85, 30 plus, nigga, I survived. Daddy told me he and mama cried. Join pain, but I was mama's pride. Almost died, I'm here, thank you, God. Settle for second, nah, I think you lie. Spiritual third eye on the prize. Dumb shit, word from the flies. She asking how I afford this coke. Fuck do you think that we do? She asking if I snorted coke. Money high, mighty too.
Tell me a little bit about what it means to you to be an OG and how you feel like that's a moniker or a name or something that you can hold yourself.
Man, that was something I just started, like certain artists, like one artist that's on the album, Los P, like he started calling me OG. And certain younger artists would kind of look up to me because I had been doing my thing longer than them or whatever. And I finally like just started like taking ownership of that. Like, okay, I'm the OG. So what am I gonna do with that? How am I going to be a mentor? Because that's really what an OG is. An OG is just basically a mentor to a younger generation. And so I talk about all I went through, like leading up to becoming an OG, how like, I almost didn't make it. Like I almost was, like my mom almost lost me when she was pregnant. And, how like, I had to really believe in myself, how I was in the nosebleeds, and then next thing you know, I'm on the Jumbotron and all these things, but also preaching the importance of, it's the reason why I'm here. Like, it's not just about being flashy and all that.
Right.
What are we teaching the kids?
Well, it's interesting because you have a guest feature on that track. So is that somebody? Can you tell me a bit about her and your relationship with her?
Yeah, Miss Crazy T. Shout out to Miss Crazy T. She's a phenomenal, legendary artist. She's been in the game probably as long as I have. And I first met her when I was working at the art museum, Mocha, Cleveland. And I wanted to do an event focused on celebrating women in hip hop. And her name just kept coming up. And I saw like some of her music, her videos, and I was just blown away by her talent. And I felt like it was actually one of my buddies. When I first wrote the song and I wrote the hook, it was just me on the record. And one of my homies was like, my homie Tino was like, yo, you should get a female to do that hook. And as soon as he said that, I was like, well, it has to be Miss Crazy T, because she's an OG for all the female rappers here in Cleveland. And I wanted to also give her flowers. You know what I mean? Like, we had talks, because when she come to the studio, like, I've never seen one like work the way she does. She came in, she didn't have, like, she was ready to go. You could tell she had rehearsed, memorized, like, the hook on that song and then her verse on another record, and she just spazzed, like, just killed it, like a pro. So I also wanted to shed light on, some of the women in Cleveland that are, that are killing it, so speaking from that perspective, but yeah, shout out to Miss Crazy T. And I told her, I was like, you a legend. I told her that personally. She was like, really? I was like, yes. That's the thing, man. I really want this music, not just the actual music, but the people that have worked on this project to understand how important the work that you're doing is.
Right. Right. Well, I think, so much of what you do isn't just about yourself, but you're always bigging people up, and putting her on the record and telling her how great she is, I think is super important. Also, with the next record, you're bigging up the whole city.
Trading in our chains for some real change. None of that fugazi, we talking real range. Red Rover come over, fuck with the underdogs. AG from the land where they becoming gods. For years we endured all them epic fails. The shot, the drive was like our holy grails. When we pick up
a little bit
LeBron,
about the UBG record, what that acronym means, and just the intricacies of making a song that is supporting and lifting up the city where you came from.
Man, like, I kind of get emotional thinking about it, because for the longest time, like, it doesn't matter, even after we became a championship city, I feel like us as Northeast Ohioans, specifically Clevelanders, we got this chip on our shoulder. Like, you tell somebody you from Cleveland, and it's not like a badge of honor. It's like, Cleveland, where the lake set on fire, where, you know, the drive happened, the fumble, the shot, all the things that I talk about in the first verse, like that. Those are the main things that people focus on, is the negatives. And I'm a living testament that regardless of where you are, you can always rise to the top. You can always achieve any goal that you set your mind to. You can overcome obstacles. And that really is the nature of Clevelanders. We're underdogs. We're a city filled with underdogs. You know, that's why when LeBron brought us our first ring in over 50 years, like, Hal was like, yo, like, can you believe it? Like, we're actually, no, yeah, we always been a city of champions. And so I wanted to write a song which focused on really, like, something you can carry in your pocket, like a badge. Like, yeah, everybody looks at me an underdog, but really, because of the goals I've been able to achieve, like, we become gods. Like, and that's kind of like a sports reference, like football gods, basketball gods, all that. It's not the God, but I really wanted to capture the essence of that, and that's why I shout out the people in the city that I feel are important, that are doing the work, such as Amanda King, Shooting Without Bullets, such as McKinley, Wiley, Dark Room Company, such as Mellow Man Funk.
I was a little mad because you shouted out. I mean, you shouted out Slimans, which is dope. But you ain't shout out the Polish boy, man. That's a Cleveland sandwich.
It's true, man. Maybe I should do a remix.
Just do a Polish on there. Yeah, get me on there, man.
Hot Sauce Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I gotta, But I was like, I was just kind of.
It's hard to rhyme Polish. I mean, I'm sure you could rhyme Polish boy, but and for me, it would be a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
So you had a feature on there, too, that is incredible. Can you tell me about the voice that appears at the very end of the song?
Man, shout out to the voice. My Crump, man. Yo, that whole experience was, man, it was nothing but God, man, putting that together. Because, like...
Who's Ahmad Crump?
So Ahmad Crump is the announcer for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's been with us for at least a decade. I know he was here when we won our championship. And his voice represents the pride of our city. And when I was in the studio, I had the song written and recorded, and then I was like, man, I really want this to be for the city. And so, like, one of the ideas was, well, we should be chanting Cleveland, And then my engineer, like, half jokingly was like, you should get Ahmad Crump on here. He's the voice of the Cavs, and, that would really bring it home. But I got a really good relationship with the Cavs. Like, I've done some work with them. Shout out to the D&I team, Corey James, and Kevin Clayton. Like, those guys have really been instrumental in some of the work that I'm doing in the community. And so I just reached out to the Cavs. I was like, hey, I got this song, and I think it would be great if we could get Ahmad Crump. And Crump also has a radio show on 93 FM. And basically it was like, all right, we taking a shot in the dark, and we'll see how this works out. He, I told him the story. I told him the mission behind what Coke Dealer is all about. And he agreed to do it. He came to the studio. Like, I basically kind of like, and all this is documented, but like I basically told him what the song was about. I had put together a reference, like, that people won't hear, of me shouting out different, because I wanted this to represent all of Cleveland. Like, that's the other thing about Cleveland is, no disrespect to people who represent St. Clair, EC, 105, Glenville, all those areas. I grew up in Chagrin Falls. I grew up in Solon. I grew up in the suburbs of Cleveland. That's still Cleveland. Like, when we leave, like, and people have their own opinions, but I wanted to make sure he shouted out various suburbs, so it wasn't just about the inner city of Cleveland, it's all of Cleveland. And he basically one-taked it, man. He just went, he went in there. He just had a list of things that he was gonna say, and you know, we got it basically in one take.
That's incredible.
It was insane. It was like, I can't really describe the feeling, because it's one thing to like go to Cavs games and hear him like Cleveland, all of that, but to actually, he's on this record. Like I can't wait for people to hear it.
Well, I think that's such a testament to everything on the record, because there's a lot of great collaboration that you're doing, you know, with the interplay between you and other people, and obviously that song personifies it. But the next song for me was a big surprise, like All I Need.
Yeah. Tell y'all what I need. Listen. I need my riches bout big as my thoughts. I need Nefertiti's, not bitches and thoughts. I need both doors up.
There's singing going on, and then that was the first time I heard in the Sequence the album you really singing. Can you talk a little bit about incorporating, you know, harmonizing and vocalizing into the music that you make, and also doing it with another singer?
Yeah, I would say it's growth. I think as an artist, you start getting bored doing the same things over and over again, and seeing and hearing what other artists have done. And then I had experimented with singing in the past, and it actually sounded like really musical. It brought out a different emotion that I hadn't really put on record before. I'm also thinking about how I want the listener to feel and how I want them to sing along. Like, All I Need really is, that was one of those, and you know, my guy Sway, he came in and like, he one-taked it too, when he was like doing the actual singing on the hook. But you know,
it's so cool to hear the two voices together. You know?
I mean, I have to also give credit to my engineer, you know, Tubi Fresco, Breakthrough Sounds. He works with singers. I know he's done a lot of work in the church as far as harmonies, all of that. I give a lot of credit to him. He has helped me to come up with some of the harmonies. I think Sway had some background singing gospel, so like when he went in the booth, he kind of already had his own harmonies that he added to it to just elevate it to that next level. But yeah, man, I wanted to try different things. I really wanted to. One of the things I'm getting away from is hiding any emotion that I feel. If I feel like singing, I'm gonna sing. You know, to the best of my ability.
Right.
But you know.
It was the treatment of the white boys shopping with their white moms, white toys. On the one hand, what a feeling to be me, and on the other, what a feeling be to be free. I mean, really free. No limit to my heights. How much me could I really be? No limit to my rights. Instead it feel like it be no limit to my plight. Soon as my star rise, they trying to my light. What in the world are you all afraid of?
Yeah, man, let's talk about all things Mitch. I mean, I think one of the most compelling things from that song as a listener hearing it is just the sample. You know, can you tell me a little bit about where you found it and how sampling has been a cornerstone of your art in general?
Yeah, so a lot of times when I'm sampling, I'll look on YouTube. No disrespect to the crate diggers, the physical crate diggers, but I do a lot of my crate digging digitally. And I just so happened to stumble upon this song called I Am a Nigger, by this 60s prog rock band based in Europe. Like I didn't clear that shit or anything. I was like, so hopefully it doesn't get taken down. But I think like we're good because their copyright laws are different, whatever. Anyway, when I heard the sample, at first I was like, okay, why is this a white European band singing about being a nigger and singing about how the entire world hates my race? Like, you have no right at all or any fucking clue what it is to be black unless you were born black. So the concept almost hit me instantly. It's white supremacy. It's appropriation of our culture. And I thought about, when I was writing the song, I thought about my own personal experiences dealing with microaggressions in the workplace, gaslighting, imposter syndrome that's brought on from the times where we as black folk in the workplace do all this work and get no fucking credit for it. And so, as far as the style of writing, like everything about that song is art. Like, I chose that sample intentionally because it's a white group saying, I'm a nigger, which at the end of the day, everybody want to be a nigga but don't want to be a nigga, to quote the late great Paul Mooney. And then like with certain parts of the record, like I say, like the Diddy line, they give us pennies for the things, the things that we create and do the Diddy dance.
Appropriate.
I said it like 5 times because in my mind, I'm going to do a show and it's going to primarily be white kids and they're going to be repeating that over and over again, which is, whether they know it or not, is appropriation of our culture because everything comes from us. You look it up, everything comes from black people. And then it's also an homage to a friend of mine, another journalist, Julian Mitchell, who on all the social platforms goes by all things Mitch. His main mantra is get paid to be yourself. That's the American dream, whether you're black, white, Asian, whatever. It's to get paid to be yourself. So at the end of the day, at the end of the song, it's like, all right, fine, I'm a nigga. Like, I'm proud of that. Like, I'm not gonna turn that down. I'm not gonna, I will say that proudly and wear that as a source of strength as opposed to something that's negative.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think that leads us into precious metals in a really important way.
We were born kings and queens, the pedal by the devils. Chains upon our lives and our dreams. Our lives are precious metal. Look at all the joy that we bring. Now we're in the middle. Don't own a goddamn thing.
Seems all he owns is sorrow. No brighter
that
tomorrow.
love and affirmation you have for yourself. When you have a song with precious metals, what does that phrase mean to you? What are you trying to convey to the listener when they hear that song?
Man. Whew, that song. It was things about that song, about the meaning, that came to me from conversations of other people that heard it. Like, the richest continent in the world is Africa. Gold, oil, rice. I look at us as black gold. Our people, where we come from, everything that we're about. And it's precious metal because it's also looked at as like precious cargo when we were shipped over here in slave ships. Whether some made it, some escaped and would rather die in the oceans than to be a slave. So much pain in that song. And so I think it's just my way of having the conversation of, not for us. If you black in America, our struggle, what we're going through. I wanted to make the song for so-called allies and people who say that they support Black Lives Matter or they put the yard signs or whatever. Do you really support Black lives, or is this just another bracelet accessory to put on to make you look good? All of that. It's why, like in the first verse, it's from the perspective of a black male being shot, and at the hands of the police, no justice, no nothing. Which I mean, now we see what happened with George Floyd's killer. Thank God for some hint of justice there. But for black women, with Breonna, still no justice. Those officers are still walking free, not indicted, nothing. And so, but it's a cycle. That's why, like, when I recorded the song, outside of what Raven did on the hook, it's like little to no emotion. because I'm so numb to it now.
Yeah, well, that's powerful when you say there's little to no emotion, because I feel like the next song, there's a lot of emotion in the delivery of your music. I thought it was sort of a breakthrough. Perform on record. The song is Too Many Funerals. The line that comes to my mind is you say, you know, inside I'm dying. Like when you say that line, you just deliver it in a way, at least for me, I haven't heard you sort of deliver rhymes that way. Can you talk about performing in this recording process and how that's been different, and how you're approaching delivering the lyrics in a nuanced and different way than maybe you did before?
I thought about how that conversation would be with someone talking to themselves or talking to a family member. Mm-hmm. I should be crying, and I'm trying, but my uncles made it clear living life in denial was the way we was raised, passed down, and like you can tell how I show the emotion at first, but because society tells us that we as black men, we don't show emotion, we don't cry, we don't stiffen your upper lip. Mm-hmm. Stop crying, boy. It's gonna be all right. Whatever it is, you get through it. Mm-hmm. I really want, because that's really what our mission at Pilgrim Lyrics is to create a safe space where black men can cry, mm-hmm. can feel emotion. And the thing about it is, the longer that you suppress that emotion, the more you feel dead inside. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to really personify that emotion of, man, I should be, like, I'm dying inside. Mm-hmm. Like, just saying that, you know, I wanted to, part of that also was just years and years of songwriting. And one of the great tips that I got learning how to songwrite was to become those words. Mm-hmm. And so I'm writing from my perspective, but I'm also writing from a protagonist of a young black male who's crying out for help. Mm-hmm. Like what Los did on that record, man. Yeah. You know, Los is 21 years old. I've known him since he was 16. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we just was talking on the phone the other day. He was at a gas station. And he's got a carrying license, but it was a couple niggas like looking at him, and while we was on the phone, he's mm-hmm. like, man, I hope them niggas know I'm ready. Mm-hmm. Like, if something go down, and nothing happened, yeah. But how do you live like that and not be in pain? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to, if the people around me are not saying it, I'ma say it. Yeah. I'ma embody that emotion.
That's powerful, man.
Thank you.
The next record, I think, is a record, one of my favorite records, Eucalyptus.
This is for my brother. This is for my brother. And we inhale, exhale, 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 and we inhale,
just
exhale.
Of the way that you chop the sample, you know, and I feel like it's a different, not a totally different lane for you, but kind of like it's in that vein of like a navy blue, or like some of these new rap artists that are coming out that are using sampling in a more minimal way. Yeah. You talk about how that record came for you and came together for you, and what it's like rapping over those type of beats that are maybe a little less rhythmic.
Yeah, so I gotta give a shout out to my guy Keelan, who I've been rocking with Keelan for over a decade now. He actually made that beat, and the first time, so my process when I write, at first, sometimes, like, it's very rare that the words just come to me. Like, I have to hear a song or music that moves me. And I had this knowledge instrumental. Mm-hmm. And it really encapsulated the emotion that I wanted on that song. You know, and that song is personal. It's very personal for me. I don't listen to it that often because I get emotional. I wrote it about a very close friend of mine who passed away. And it was definitely tied to mental health, you know, why he's not here. And I felt like this song in particular, we don't need drums. You know, I really want to communicate a feeling, you know, a raw emotion. And so when I was in the booth, that's why I was yelling. I was in such pain. But again, it's not just about my pain. I think about the young black males that we're going to talk to about grief, about grieving the loss of someone. Sometimes they don't have an opportunity to yell or express that kind of emotion. So what do? They put it in drinking, sex, drugs, violence against their significant other, against each other, themselves. And so I wanted to show, like, it's okay to, like, really yell and express, like, how you feel. But at the same time, I also wanted it to feel like an ascent. Like, it's almost like the spirit of my friend is ascending to a higher place. That's really what that sample, that's the feeling that it gave me. Like, oh man, like this feels like a eulogy, you know. And that's really Eucalyptus. Like, I feel like it could also be called eulogy, because that's basically a eulogy for my brother. You know,
that's dope, man.
Yeah.
So Anxiety is the next record, and I think when I first heard this, I was just stunned, because I was like, wow, like, you know, this could be a rock record.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's
I thought you might rock with it, man.
Yeah, I loved it. And
Have you ever
I'm just interested in I know that you've always been eclectic in your musical taste, but what is it like for you branching off into these different genres in a way? Was it something conscious that you had going on, or is it something that happened naturally? And, you know, where are you at now with those kind of experiments?
I would say with this record in particular, it just kind of hit me. Like, as soon as I heard the beat, my buddy Matt Lee made the beat, and it actually was like there was more to the beat when he sent it to me, but that tone, those chords, like it gave me this feeling like I never felt before, like as far as songwriting. And the words just came to me. Have you ever, I just closed my eyes. Have you ever had a dream of a life truly lived on magazines? It was those words, you don't rap those, you sing those, you know what I mean? And so it taps into my love for punk rock, my love for alternative music, but me also experimenting and trying something new.
Well, you definitely experimented with the ad-libs, I felt like, too. There's a lot of cool vocal effects that are on your voice. Was that something that Matt did, or the engineer? Who treated your voice and sort of did different things with it to kind of make it more like an instrument?
So I worked with the engineer because what I wanted sonically, Anxiety to feel like was actual anxiety. So like that's why you hear like the voices, you know, because that's what, at least from my experience with Anxiety, it's like all these different voices trying to tell me this thing. And I wanted it to feel psychedelic. And so like I basically told my engineer, like, hey, you know, and the first time I heard the song, man, like after it was done, I like shed a tear. Because it took me to a higher place, man. Anxiety like that. And like for some people, it's hard to listen to. Like for my wife, it's hard for her to listen to. It's too much going on. But that's what Anxiety is. Imagine like feeling like it's too much going on, and unless you know how to do a breathing exercise or something to kind of cope with it, you just gotta like endure a panic attack. So I really wanted, for that song in particular, like I wanted to feel like Anxiety, but I also wanted to challenge myself to do something else. And as far as like the way it ended, that is one of the main battles that we as black men face every day. You got society, sometimes ourselves, saying niggas don't have a happy ending. But at the same time, we're telling ourselves, we're trying to pump ourselves up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nah, they do have happy endings. What are you talking about? Like, I'm gonna have a happy ending. And then life, as it always does, will show us, maybe not.
Yeah. So Fear Not is the next track.
Isaiah 41. Fear not, for I'm the Lord. I will not leave you, nor forsake you. Don't be afraid. Obscurity.
And I think that was so cool about this, as a person who knows you, is that you opened it up with some scripture. Can you talk a little bit about the scripture that you use and how religion and your relationship with God has played a role in your life and in your music?
Yeah, man. So, Fear Not, that's probably the oldest song. I wrote that and recorded it 5 years ago. And as far as with where I am, the different platforms I've been given, the accolades, all of that, I always remember that it comes from the Lord, like everything that I've done. And one of the most powerful verses in the Bible is Isaiah 41. Fear not, for I'm the Lord, I will not leave you nor forsake you. It's been so many times where I felt alone, you know, and that song is not just for someone with mental illness or anything like that. It's also for dreamers out there, like, which all my music, all my projects kind of tie back to chasing your dreams. And I went through a lot of different emotions doing this record, this album, and a lot of risk. A lot, you know, as far as trying new things, as far as are people gonna really fuck with it or not. And with this song in particular, I wanted to make sure that I also inserted like that my relationship with God also propelled me here, because it's times all the time to this day where like, all right, God, I gotta send it up to you because I don't know how this is gonna work, you know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So next track is Friends and Fam.
You know they say it's lonely at the top. That's why I lift as I climb. Bring my friends and fam with me. Know one thing. When you see me with everything I earn, just know I'll wait my turn. You dig that? Feeling like a motherfucking champion right now, man. I just pulled up to the field house.
This reminds me of what you said in the beginning, this idea of receipts, you know? In Friends and Family, you kind of go through a lot of the accomplishments and things that you've had in your life. What does it feel like to hear that back, recognize those things, or be in this penthouse right now, to be in this moment that you're in where so much of what you've been working on is like coming together?
Man, that's just a celebration, man. Like, you know, I have this app on my phone called Tubi, which is like a daily affirmation, and like it'll like basically ping your phone. And the mantra I've been on now is I deserve to be happy. And this record is just about being happy, but also thinking about the fact that you don't get into this game to do this by yourself. Like, what's the point of me, you know, becoming a success and not having anyone to share it with, you know? And so, like, man, I want to make sure I pull up my friends and fam with me. And so, in that record, actually, the story behind that song, or at least my verse, was written after going to a Cavs game. So, like, you know, as I stated before, I already got a good relationship with the Cavs. They're really dope individuals. And I took my brother-in-law with me to a game. We get there, and, like, the section that we in might as well have been the friends and family section, right? Because, like, the people I knew in that section were all doers in Cleveland. So, like, Danielle Sidnor, who at the time was, like, the executive director for the NAACP, Ronisha Horn, who at the time was at Radio 1 Cleveland, marketing director there, DeAndre Byfield, who runs a clothing line. Like, but the really dope thing about that moment was all these people look like me. Like, we're running the city, we're doing all these things, like these amazing things. We have all this kind of access. And so, like, I think with that song in particular, it's just preaching the importance of make sure you take the people that have been down from day one with you, or the people who have just never seen that before. My brother-in-law had never seen anything like that before.
Right.
You know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So when I listen to Wings, which is the next track.
Yeah. 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 Great is thy faithfulness. Wow. Look at God. Look at where we at. Thank you, God. Whoever thought that rap would take it this far?
This great feeling because it had like a little bit of that flavor of like a Reasonable Doubt era Jay-Z. You know what I'm saying? Like the jazziness of it. How is it when you approach music? What kind of ambiance or what kind of feeling or vibe are you trying to bring to records, and how much that is informed by the artists and other creators that you love?
Man, that's a great question, man. I think, you know, with certain records, I want people to feel confident. With certain records, I want people to feel love, like on that record, Wings. As far as my whole vibe, I'm a very laid-back individual. You know, it's funny, my wife is more, you know, she be on the go. She brings a lot of energy, and I'm kind of more of a chill, laid-back guy. But that was like an ode to like 90s hip-hop, you know, that record in particular. So I also wanted to do something for some of the my older fans, you know, the ones who do listen to Reasonable Doubt to this day, or Illmatic, or anything from that era. So I think it was just a balance. It was kind of injecting another aspect of hip hop that I love, which also ties back to our organization. Like, you know, that's that real hip hop shit. Like When you hear that, that's like, okay, like this artist is not just a guy who's like trying to cater to a younger crowd. He's catering to everybody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. And so I love Letter to My Unborn, which is the next track I want to talk to you about.
Special. Baby girl, baby girl.
Just because
It's 5:40
it takes
in
a
the
very
morning.
powerful approach. You know, we've seen great writers do that a lot in the past, where they write to either unborn child or to a child that's living. For you as a songwriter, why did you choose that perspective to write the song that way, and what unique things does that perspective bring out in your writing?
So the first thing I want to say, me and Nikkei are not expecting, not yet, because like, you know, when I put this song out, like people were like, "Oh, congratulations!" Like, no. But when I wrote that song, you know, the real meaning of that song is like, yeah, it's a letter from my unborn daughter, but it's really a letter to Black women, whether cisgendered or trans. Like it's a message to Black women that we as Black men are not doing what we supposed to be doing. Like, but part of it also is, it's almost like everything that you've heard up to that point in the album is why we have mistreated Black women so bad, because we're hurting. So, but at the same time, I wanted to address that, but also share some jewels with my daughter, or my would-be unborn daughter. This is how we're gonna raise you. We're not going to put any limits on what you can do. Whether you decide one day that I was born in this cisgendered male body, but I'm actually a woman in my spirit, like, or like if you are dealing with issues with men who have issues within themselves, the importance of loving yourself first before any other person, whether it's a man, a woman, whoever, can love you. You know, the importance of preaching that. So I really wanted to write a letter specifically to Black women because I love Black women. Like, I love my mom, I love my wife, my sister, and so many women around me, my DJ Candy Freshka. And women are so influential in my life. I wanted to make sure I did something specifically for that audience. Like, it's not for anyone else. Literally, from the coke dealer to you, I love y'all. I'm sorry for what's been going on. Hopefully, with some of the messages, the men that hear the song will start to check themselves with how they treat other black women, as well as the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
So as we get to the closing last couple songs of the album, I mean, Write It Down is very, very powerful.
Forget it. I prayed, wrote it down, set intentions, then I did it. Write it down, 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 write it down. Now watch it come around. Yeah, watch it come around. Write it down, 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 write it down.
It would be a great opportunity to talk a little bit about your personal therapeutic practice and how you work through things, and also what you want to bring to young people as coping mechanisms.
Yeah, so Write It Down is it's my favorite record on the whole album. It was the last record that I wrote, and it basically, it's preaching the importance of manifesting. So like everything we see here, this penthouse, these views, everything that I've been able to achieve so far started with an idea and then me writing it down, putting it on a vision board. I carry a journal, my hustle journal, and I write down what my goals are for the day, but also what I would like to achieve in the next few months, next year. And I wanted to write a song that really preached the importance of that, that added an actual chant, write it down, because I could see the youth saying that out loud, and then actually going to do it, writing down, putting a vision board on their wall, because I know how much wonders that's done for me in my life. And then I have to give a shout out to Frank Aloysius, who just killed with the live trumpet.
Yeah.
I've worked with Frank in the past with the band Uptown Buddha he's a part of. He's done stuff on other records as well, but when he came to the studio and laid that down, it was all just him just playing around, and he just took the record to another level, man. But that song in particular is special to me.
Yeah.
I love that record.
Well, I think you end the album with two really musical records, because you have the horns on Write It Down, and then the story of the coke dealer is like a musical journey.
That's a predicament that we all face. Is it iTunes or using BitTorrent? Are we still in the spotlight or playing it safe? What you see when you look in the mirror, you see a king or a slave. Now wipe your eyes, look a bit clearer. No, see a man put fear in its place. For too long you've been playing it safe.
The way that the beat flows. I feel like you kind of told us the story of the coke dealer in the beginning when you told us about your life journey, but with this song, on the musical side of it, tell us about how the beat flips and flows and evolves as you listen to it.
Yeah, so I think one of the big things I've learned as a producer as I've gotten older and made more music and worked with different artists, different producers, is how to really evoke an emotion. So the first beat that I wrote that song to was it was a Marvin Gaye sample. So I'm all right, I'm not gonna get that clear. That's just not gonna happen. But I wanted to communicate that same feeling.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember which sample kit I got that from, the sample. But this was all one record. All these different feelings, all the different instrumentations was all one recording. And so I was like, man, I want to capture all of this, because with what I'm talking about in the song, I wanted to basically take you for a ride, okay? So you get in the car, it starts here, and then by the time you get to the end, you go into all these dark areas, right? When you just hear strings, and it's kind of airy, and it you feel like you're in the woods. That's what depression is, man. You feel like there's no way out. But at the same time, what happens is you either talk yourself off that tree, or your wife comes and helps you, or the people that love you come and help. And then at the end, it takes you back to where you were. And you remind yourself that you are always you. You are not your depression. You're not your anxiety. You're not your bipolar disorder. It's an epilogue. I mean, this is why we're here. This is what this album is all about. And so that's how, like, and I can't lie and say, like, I wasn't inspired by a Kendrick to do something, you know, where it's like, yes, it's on the one hand, it's lyrical rap, but on the other hand, it's lyrical poetry. Because I couldn't think of any other better way to close out such an important work.
Well, the flow that you have towards the end of the song, especially when the beat drops out, feels very, very complex. And the only way, like, I was trying to figure out, like, how you put the bars together, you know what I'm saying? But it makes sense that it would be more like, it's almost like poetry. Yeah. You know, like, how did you match that up? Like, how did you kind of put that together?
Man, so I had already had the poem written, and I just, when I was tinkering around with the sample, I was like, okay, I lost all feeling in my emotions today. I wanted to feel hollow, so that part has to feel hollow. And then when there's like, because I'm a classically trained musician, saxophone, so I know about crescendo, I know about coda, I know about all these different music theory terms. And so at the part where you're talking about wanting to get off this self-deprecating planet, this isolating planet, that's when it's like it gets really loud, and it gets really energized, a lot of energy. And but at the same time, I also wanted to like take it to that point where your spirit, your soul, your self-esteem is like, you know, it's like shrunk down to like a cat in a tree. And so with that, it's like, oh, well, you got to slow down the music again. You got to make it lighter. And when you're finally coming down, that's when the music is calming down. It's becoming, but then it's like a return to who you are. Because when the beat comes out, when I take the beat out, that's like your heartbeat coming to a stop, like full stop. Like, why are we here? What is this feeling that I'm feeling right now? I'm feeling hollow. Why? Well, it's got to be the lows. You know, me being broke. You know, not having a job. Me being told I can't be a rapper. I can't do this. Well, if it's not the lows, it's got to be the highs. You know, me meeting Ryan Coogler and me being on a billboard, doing all these things. The truth about depression is it doesn't discriminate your status. You could be a king. You could be like the biggest, most well-known person in the world, or you could be like a guy on the street, living on the street. And depression doesn't care. Like, and so I wanted to really communicate that sonically, not just with my words, but with how the music feels. And so, like, honestly, man, like that, I just attribute that. That's a God-given gift, man. For real.
Yeah. And you know, like you already said how you end the record, but I think that might be a great place to sort of wrap up this conversation. Like, when you say, you know, I am not my depression, like what exactly does that mean, and what do you hope that especially the young black men and boys get from that message?
I mean, I think, you know, at the end of the day, like, yeah, I title myself the coke dealer, but really the goal of this project is anybody can become a coke dealer. And, you know, you do that by learning how to cope with your depression, whether you're going to therapy or you're going to different PDLB workshops, you're having conversations about what's going on internally. But a lot of people feel like, especially when you're in the depths of depression, that you're alone, that this is just how it is, this is just who you are. When in reality, it's literally like, I personify my depression. I call it the monster. And I'll have conversations. I'll be like, all right, bro, I got shit to do today. Like, so you can either kick rocks or you can come with me, but I can't just stay in this emotional place all day. I have things I have to do. And that's a reminder that I'm not my depression. I'm not my mental illness. And that really is my personal life mission, is to share that with the world as best I can so people don't feel alone.
That's what's up. I love you, brother. You made an incredible record.
Thank you, man. Yeah. Appreciate you.
No doubt, man.
Yeah.